Baby Reindeer, Martha, Part 6. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. This is the final aspect of the consideration of the evidence that was produced in the Netflix series to aid us with the determination of what the character Martha actually is. It transpires that Donnie's breakdown at the comedy club was recorded and placed on YouTube. This leads to things actually improving in his life. At one point, because he's so busy, he makes the mistake of adding his mobile number to his out-of-office reply, resulting in the fact that when Martha once again seeks to contact him, she receives the bounce back, telling him the mobile number. He had successfully withheld that from her for some time, but now she has it. And immediately, she utilizes that number to call him. She threatens him and insults him about the sexual abuse he suffered on the basis that it's only fair after what she's suffered. She tells him, "I can't express how furious I am about the way you shafted me." You will have noticed that there was a shift in tone in relation to Martha's stalking of Donnie. That in the early stages, it was about wanting to be with him, believing that they were in a relationship together, believing that they were in love, believing, for instance, that they might have children together, that they would get married. And then he ended the relationship, even though there wasn't actually one. And thereafter, she has continued consistently to behave with the mindset that she's been cheated on by Donnie with Terry, and that he has hurt her and been extremely cruel. Therefore, the artifice of the relationship between her and Donnie has persisted, notwithstanding the fact that there never was one, and that that was in the past. It's as if that is cemented in her mind, that there was a relationship between the two of them. Interestingly, she doesn't show any suggestion of wanting to get in a relationship with him again, but rather it's all about smearing him, insulting him, saying how hurt she has been by what he has done. Is this a rampant victim mentality, which is being used for the purpose of trying to make him feel guilty? Or is it somebody whose delusion has caused them to believe that they were in a relationship where they were cheated on and that they were dumped unfairly, so that they are rightfully hurt, that this is righteous indignation and anger at the way they've been treated? Donnie's concerned that Martha may well expose to his parents the content of the confessional video he made in the comedy club. He therefore decides in effect to head her off at the pass and goes to see them. He confesses to what has gone on. He remains in Scotland with them for a period of time and then returns to London. He had turned his phone off, and when he switches it back on, he has 50 new voicemail messages from Martha. They're raging, they're insulting, they're furious. Notwithstanding the fact that she does not receive any response whatsoever from him, that he never answers, she is still compelled to keep ringing him and ringing him and ringing him. Is this because she needs to get control over him, and notwithstanding the fact that she receives no response, there is this mania that's being exhibited that causes her to keep calling? Is it driven by a form of obsession to get control over him? Or is it simply that she has this fixation which causes her to continue to call him irrespective of the fact that she gets a response? Is it perhaps that the response is entirely meaningless to Martha, that it's all about the ability to vent towards him and she isn't actually bothered about receiving any response, that she feels almost a catharsis in being able to vent against him in this way? Donnie decides that he'll go to the police again, and it's suggested that he keeps the number and notes when she says something threatening so that this can be used against her. Over the following months, she is incessant with regard to her calling and leaving messages. She brings up past events, she makes false promises, and she draws conclusions from implausible details. This continued haranguing is done without any response again being received from Donnie. Therefore, what's in it for Martha? Is it, as I mentioned earlier, just simply the need to call him and vent her spleen? Does that allow her in some way to feel like she has achieved something? Perhaps she's gaining thought fuel, imagining how he responds, even though she doesn't get an actual response. She certainly exhibits magical thinking as a consequence of drawing conclusions from implausible details. The messages continue to threaten and abuse, and eventually Donnie is moved to report all of it so that he can then move forward with his life. This results in Martha being arrested and charged with 3 counts of stalking and harassment. Donnie attends her plea hearing at court, where after a moment of hesitation, Martha pleads guilty to harassment and stalking of Donnie and pleads guilty to harassment and stalking of his parents. Martha breaks down in tears. This plea is interesting. There is no denial of what she's charged with. She accepts what she has done. Is this a moment of lucidity for her, where she understands her behaviour, recognises that it is inappropriate, and pleads guilty? Is it perhaps the case that she has been advised to do that on the basis of overwhelming evidence so that she would receive a shorter sentence? We are, of course, not privy to her thought process behind why she's pled guilty. We don't know if she received legal advice, but it's worth making that point as a potential consideration, because her admission of guilt is very important with regard to helping us understand the mindset of Martha. Ordinarily, certain individuals would deny that they'd done anything wrong because they believe their own lies, that they believe that they haven't done anything wrong. And ordinarily, that would result in a not guilty plea being provided. The fact that she pleads guilty suggests that she does know what she's done, and she understands that it is appropriate for her to issue that admission. She breaks down in tears. Is this genuine contrition for her awful behaviour? Is it a form of pity play? Or is it simply the case that she's upset for herself, not wanting to influence anybody else, but she's overcome with perhaps shame and self-loathing? It transpires that Martha is sentenced to 9 months in prison and a 5-year restraining order. And, as a consequence of that, that was the last time that he ever saw her. Donnie thereafter looks to understand why Martha behaved as she did, and I'll be examining what that tells us about him separately. But in the course of keeping hundreds of voicemails for her and examining the content, he attends on a pub, and he sat, having ordered a double vodka and coke, that he sits and listens to a further voicemail from Martha. This explains the origins of baby Reindeer. She explains that when she was a child, she had a toy, and that she still has it. It was the only good thing about her childhood, she explained. She said that she would hug it when they fought, presumably her parents, and they fought a lot, you know. She explained, "You are the spit of that reindeer. Same nose, same eyes, same cute wee bum. It means so much to me." She's crying as she says all this. "You mean so much to me." Thus, an explanation is provided as to why the series is called Baby Reindeer, and the significance of why she called him that also, which of course is objectification of him. It does raise an interesting question that she justifies the use of that pet name by reference to a toy from her childhood, suggesting somehow that that toy was a place of sanctuary for her, and therefore suggesting furthermore that Donnie was also. We do not know whether this is true or not. We do not know whether this has just been made up to elicit sympathy. Given the fact that she doesn't seem to expect any response to her messages, one might wonder whether it is actually true that she's simply recalling an event from her childhood. On the other hand, we know that this is a very unwell woman who makes things up regularly, who believed that she was in contact with Alex Salmond, that she had penthouses across London. But of course, even someone as deluded as Martha may well make reference to matters which are actually true. It also calls into question that if she did this in relation to Donnie, what were the motivating factors with regard to the other people that she stalked? Did she call them baby reindeer also? We don't know. Did she talk about them in the same way as she did with Donnie? Is it the case that there was in effect a Donnie 1, a Donnie 2, a Donnie 3, etc., that she moves from individual to individual with a similar modus operandi of idolising them and then lashing out at them when her affections and love are not reciprocated? We're not given those answers, but they're appropriate questions to be posed with regard to considering what she might be. On the assumption that what she says is accurate, this demonstrates that there was clearly some childhood trauma on her part, which has impacted upon her, which has resulted in her developing a fixation for a toy, and then linking the comfort that she felt in relation to that toy with the comfort that she feels around a human being that she associates with that toy. What does that amount to? Is that a form of triangulation that she's engaging in, or is it something alternative with regard to the objectification of Donnie? Thus, that is everything that has been presented through the series itself in relation to Martha. As I've mentioned previously, I'll be analysing other information in relation to Donnie and Darian separately. What we then have is a mass of information that I've taken you through with much to consider. However, it doesn't end there, because in a peculiar twist, the individual who purportedly is the subject of the series, a lady called Fiona Harvey, essentially outed herself as internet sleuths got close to identifying her identity. She came out in newspapers, despite the newspapers not wishing to identify her. She did so. And, as you know, she was also interviewed by Piers Morgan. In the next part, we're going to collate her response to the series in which she's portrayed as a dangerous stalker, her reaction to that, how she responds to it, which sheds even more light on the complex character that is Martha, before examining the Piers Morgan interview. As ever, continue to let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I've been reading them with interest. There's lots of different ideas that are being explored. It's very useful and interesting to see where your minds are going with all of that. And next, we will be looking at what has happened in the real world in relation to the reaction by the real-life Martha, and examining what that means in relation to what she is. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.